While half of London's front gardens are now paved over. That's according to the Royal Horticultural Society. Londoners are uprooting trees and digging up lawns to make room for off-road parking. Green Party Assembly member Baroness Jenny Jones wants better planning laws to protect green spaces and joins me on the programme now. Jenny, good morning to you. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
What's the problem?
Well, it seems trivial, I suppose. I mean, just one householder paving over their front garden. But when you take the cumulative effect and you have half of London's front gardens paved over, that means that flash flooding, and flooding of all sorts, is much more likely. When you have grass and plants, trees and so on, they soak up the rain as it happens. Whereas if it all runs off, it floods into the drains and you can get a lot of surface water flooding. When we've had some heavy rain this year, but the potential is for much more heavy rain. And so it could cause quite a problem.
Well, isn't it a bit late now when half of the gardens have already been paved over? Shouldn't you have been campaigning for this maybe 25 years ago?
I've been campaigning for longer than that about things like this. A lot of people think that, looking after a front garden is a lot of work, and quite honestly, I struggle to look after my front garden. But what I've tried to do is take up some of the pavings and make sure that there's enough permeable surface. If you want space for your car, and I really understand people wanting to do that, you can just put 2 tyre tracks, and you could even make that from a permeable matting of some sort, and then you can have grass in the rest. There's another aspect, which I don't talk about as much, because I don't know, it sounds fluffy and green, but it accelerates the loss of wildlife and habitat. It means fewer birds, insects, hedgehogs, and all that ecosystem. We need that as humans to survive, and so we're lessening that as well.
I mean, look, it all sounds terrific, except if you haven't got anywhere to park where you live, and it's incredibly difficult to secure a parking space, and, you have to keep moving your car because, as everybody knows, the regulations might be that between 12 and 12:30 or 1 and 2, you've got to move the car to somewhere else. If anybody can manage to claw some kind of parking space in London, it is like gold dust, and occasionally it's worth more than gold dust. Occasionally it's worth, I think a parking space was sold in Mayfair for something like £350,000, and that was only the other day. So, to say, listen, put some begonias in, have a few petunias, a few blades of grass and a small tree, and the answer is what? This is daily expenditure on parking, daily inconvenience. If I can park my car in my front drive, my goodness, I'm going to do that. And if I pave over the whole thing and I can park 2 cars, then I'm in clover, mate. And I'm not going to plant any clover either.
No, I quite appreciate that. I mean, I personally have got a drive outside my flat, but I haven't got a car, so other people use it. But we can get around this. We can have plants and grass in some areas, and as I say, just have twin tracks perhaps for the wheels. There's also the fact that from a health point of view, when you have lots of paving, lots of concrete and hard surfaces, it absorbs heat in the daytime and releases it at night. So paved over front gardens can actually make sleep quite difficult, and with warmer summers and so on, this is going to have some impact on people. It has a lot of serious health implications, particularly for the young and elderly. London is already much hotter. There's a heat island effect. We're much hotter than the surrounding countryside, and this will get worse. I would just say to people, just think twice about how you can keep a bit of green, but also park your car.
So are you saying if you've already paved over the whole thing and thought good riddance to that grass, the weeding problem, the ladybirds, next door's cat, it's just nothing but paving, fantastic. They should listen to you, Baroness Jenny Jones, on BBC Radio London, and call in a man to haul up their crazy paving? I mean, people meant to do that, Jenny? Would you think anyone will?
Well, I actually did take up some of my paving because I felt so guilty about this. Well, it's only a small paved area, but I felt guilty, so I did take up some. But I would say it's not only me saying this, it's the Royal Horticultural Society, and if you go to their website, they're very clear. I mean, they care particularly about the loss of wildlife and eco-diversity and so on. But generally, for all of us, it will be a lot healthier if we can keep some plants, some grass, some earth, so that when the rain comes, when the hard rain comes, it doesn't all run off and flood our roads.
Well, I put it to you that it's too late because anyone who's had the chance to pave over has busily paved. Once you've paved, you're not going to de-pave or unpave. You're paved, and that's it. You paid to pave, and you've done it. You can park your car. You're relieved and pleased, and you don't get rid of the paving. And that this is going to only to increase. It's not going to decrease. And that the only way to stop it, or to persuade people against paving and instead to put down, as you say, permeable surfaces, will be to issue some kind of legislation, which I don't think anybody's going to want very much.
Well, it probably wouldn't need much legislation, and some of it is just people don't realise the impact. As I say, for each individual household, it seems like a tiny thing to do. But in fact, the Royal Horticultural Society has estimated that we lose 2.5 Hyde Parks of greenery every year because of people paving over their front gardens. So I would say, people can have their parking, but they can also have some plants. And also, of course, it doesn't look that great when you have absolutely no greenery in a road.
Listen, let's get real about this, Baroness Jones, and let's just make what happens in London absolutely clear. Grass, trees, shrubs, daffodils, begonias, tulips, any old thing. You can't see it anyway if you have it because of the collection and plethora of different bins. There are enormous wheelie bins clogging and cluttering up entrances to houses all the way around London and all the way across. There are flats with hundreds, it seems, of different wheelie bins. There are recycling bins of 7 different colours. Who can even... If you had a blade of grass, no one could see it. So if you're talking about what's sightly or unsightly, shouldn't you go to work on the wheelie bins before anything else?
Well, I think wheelie bins are necessary, but I do understand they can be really unsightly. But of course, plants are another way to actually hide them and disguise them. Part of the problem, I think, has been that we have such pressure on housing here in London, so many people renting, and people, either don't have the time for gardens, or it's not their place, and why should they do the work anyway? This is really, and you've also got to remember, of course, that car ownership in London is relatively low, obviously much lower in the centre than it is in the suburbs where the public transport isn't as good. But we can, I suppose what I'm asking people to do is just pause for thought. If I could just deter a few people from paving over their front gardens, it will add to their safety in their street and prevent some local surface water flooding. So
Listen,
I'm an optimist.
Far be it for me to argue against a hyacinth or an apple tree or any kind of horticulture. I'm a keen gardener. I love the idea of front gardens which are actually gardens. Of course, they're pretty and they're fragrant and they're great for wildlife and they stop flooding and they're absorbent. And I think every word you say is an utterance of the very heavens. Of course it is. You're speaking on behalf of Mother Nature, and even I at the BBC don't have to be against Mother Nature or even neutral. I can be vastly in favour, which I am, but I just wonder whether this is a job already done, Jenny Jones. Thank you very much indeed for calling. Let's go to Maureen in Plymouth.